Good morning, Reverend Jackie.
Morning, Reverend Josh.
It's great to see you today.
Thanks, and you too.
So grateful that you said yes to talking with me this morning and just recording some podcasts with ministers and who knows who else this year around our initiative at Mile High of healing in community. And I know that you're a really community-centric person, so I was excited to talk to you. And I've been thinking about our beloved Dr. Raz Smith this morning, who maybe someone else said it, but he said it best. And he would say, addiction happens in isolation and recovery happens in community. And I think it applies in more ways than just that. I think sometimes disease happens in isolation. Deep depression can happen in isolation. Pain can happen in isolation, and healing can take place in community in a powerful way. And I'm just kind of guessing that there's a little bit of your own story in what I'm sharing.
Absolutely. Having the opportunity to be able to work with the community of Mile High Church and the external community has really sort of shown me more of that there is a healing of myself, even in the midst of a lot of the things that are going on in life. There are things going on in my life that if I didn't have a community outside of my home, I would be depressed and unhappy and those kinds of things. And what I find is by having a community to be able to be with. And then I get the extra bonus of being the minister of outreach, which means that I get to deal with people whose whole idea of service is to serve the community. And by serving the community, you can watch them, things that are going on in their own life, kind of disappear. They don't really, but for the moment they disappear because they're so engaged in what they're doing in order to support the community.
I love that. So it's not that an issue or a problem goes away, but that it becomes less significant.
Right.
We're in the midst of community.
Yes.
And, I think of your incredible ministry, not only as a speaker and a teacher here at Mile High, but, within our organization, you help people be of service. Mm-hmm. You help people see others as they're walking in the door so that everyone in our community is seen in that way. And then in your exterior community service work, we're often giving charity to people, but, I know when we're giving that, you're seeing the truth of who they are, and lifting them up. And there's something really powerful about being seen and witnessed in the realm of community. And I'm interested in what it's like for you not only to be someone who sees, but to help others be part of that seeing and that giving.
Interesting. I was thinking this week even I am going to go over to Rose Stein. They have a quarterly care kind of group that gets together, and it's all the different groups that support that school. For us to be able to meet each other, to support each other, to see what's happening within that one individual school. And I think that for me, being able to see the community exteriorly from Mile High is really powerful because it reminds me that even though we may see things differently in terms of the spiritual realm, we see things just the same when it comes to supporting humanity, to taking care of the community, whether it be here within Mile High or it's the larger community that we are supporting, all of those beautiful nonprofits that are here in the Lakewood community who have needs, and to be able to get together. And one of the greatest partners we have is the Action Center, because it has brought together the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Presbyterians, the Catholics, the Latter-day Saints, and then Mile High Church, bringing us all together so that we can celebrate what each is doing individually and find ways that we can work together.
I love that, and I think you hit upon something really powerful for me. Not that religion isn't community or politics isn't community, but community fundamentally is shared values.
Yes.
Right. And, you get to be a part, and you create here at Mile High, a community shared values of caring and compassion, of listening and understanding. And it can be amazing for someone who has been, sitting on that political fringe, watching the news all day, or someone who's been perhaps in a church that has an inclusive or an exclusive element to it. And, we can come in thinking we're separate, we're different, there's that other side, and all of that drifts very quickly away when we embrace those shared values that true community offers us.
Exactly. And you were absolutely right in saying that healing can occur also, even momentary healing, by being in community and taking the attention off all that stuff, whether it be the distractions in the world or your own personal distractions, but to realize that there is a far higher purpose for all of us here than just getting up in the morning, having our protein drinks, doing all the things that we do naturally, but that it's so much bigger if we would just understand and listen, as you say, listen and be available to people who really need support, who really need to feel community because they're feeling alone.
And, all of our ministers care about community, but I know it's essential to you.
Yes.
And you've been a religious science minister at Mile High Church for several years, but your ministry goes beyond that, and including being in other denominations and being a leader in those. And so I'm just interested in hearing as well, the calling to ministry and its relationship to this concept of community for you.
Wow. My original calling to ministry, I was very young and didn't even realize that's what it was. And I think that's kind of typical when, the little knock comes and you're young and life happens and you do all the things you do in life. And when probably the real shift for me, I was always involved in the Methodist Church in their youth program and their choir and all of the things that were part of that as a young child, and loved it because it was a community. And then it's been a joke in my family, and I'll only tell you half of the joke, that when my husband and I got married, I agreed to become a Lutheran, and he agreed to be something else, which I won't.
It is a podcast, so we can say
okay,
what we want.
Can say what we want.
Past.
Okay. So at that time, his father was a Texas Democrat, and my family was a strong Republican family. So that was the joke. I'd become a Lutheran, he'd become a Republican. Okay. And the truth is, as I've learned in time, Texas Democrats really are Republicans.
Well, you can, yes.
Yes.
At that time that you talk of, they were different than we experienced both those parties today.
Absolutely. So anyway, that was the joke. And yet that was a real turning point for me, because what I realized, one of the things I've always loved is learning the history of the religion that I'm in without realizing that, because I loved learning about the Wesleys and how Methodism started. And then I got into the Lutheran Church and was very enamored with the whole Luther story. And I loved the ritual. I loved the ritual in the Lutheran Church, because there is a sense that when you are in that setting, you feel the divine. I could really feel God within me. And so I really loved that. And then as we moved around a bit, when we got to Pennsylvania, we both got very involved in the Lutheran Church there. And I became the first female elder in the church, and that is saying something, because this was a very conservative community. So that spoke a lot for them and for me. And in that role, if the audience isn't familiar with what happens as an elder in the Lutheran Church, you are part of the ecclesiastical team. You're giving communion. You're doing a lot of hospital visits. You're doing many of the things that our practitioners do here at Mile High. And so I really began to feel that pull and had considered going into ministerial school while I was in Pennsylvania. And then it's always shocking. life happens and we move to Colorado. And so that didn't happen. And it took probably, it took some time before I had been introduced to Mile High in 1993. And I said, yeah, that's really nice. But we'd come out of things in our church back in Pennsylvania were a little interesting. And so I wasn't quite ready. And then in 2006, I was invited by someone who was in the choir to come to Roger's 30th anniversary here in the Vote Auditorium. And it was like, okay, fine, and not even considering the call anymore. It was just, okay, fine, I'll show up. And sitting there in that one service, like so many people you hear, it was like, wow. Because for me, Christianity had never hurt me. And yet there were things that I put aside, things that maybe didn't make sense, but they weren't enough to make me give it up, because I still felt that when I went into that building, into that sanctuary, that I was a part of something very, very significant, far bigger than myself. So community was big for me, even in the Lutheran church, because my husband and I worked with the youth. I taught the young adults there. So it was always important to me to be involved. And so to be able to have the opportunity to here at Mile High, to be the person who can kind of wrangle our volunteers and work with them and still be able to be outside of Mile High. That's been a big push for me particularly in our Make a Difference ministry, is to encourage our people to get out in the community, so that for two reasons: one for themselves and one for Mile High, because they are representatives when they step out there. So there's a long story on my journey.
Not long at all. Well, we're so grateful that it demonstrated here at Mile High. And one takeaway, and you agree or disagree with me that I'm taking from this too, just sitting with this idea of community and how it can help us transcend both religion and politics. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but I do think for a Mile Higher that community is a higher value than religion, and it is let's just say at least a higher value than partisanship. And I was counseling with a congregant, and we were talking about relationships, and she was sharing how it was really important to her to have meet someone who had the same spiritual beliefs that she was, and she was liberal, and she's like, and I don't want to date a Republican, and I get that. I mean, it's always good to have things that are in common, but my thing for just her to consider is, what if they just shared your values? What if they weren't an ass about it, or weren't trying to change your mind, but really loved you and supported you in your beliefs, and you loved and in return supported them? Would that be okay? And we kind of agreed that might be. And yet, she expresses, as so many of us do, what? If someone is not my Christian faith, that means they don't have the same values, or if they aren't a part of my party, they don't share the same values. And I just don't think that's true. And I think so much of the work that you do in community kind of helps reveal that you can be a great Christian and have great community values, that you can be a Republican or a Democrat and share the same values. And if we all remembered that, we could experience a lot more healing in our lives and a lot less isolation.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, and it makes me smile to go back to when my husband Doug and I met, and that was the agreement, that I'd become a Lutheran and he'd become a Republican, and yet the greatest values were not in that religious, the piece around politics, which were big. My family was big in Virginia, in politics in Northern Virginia. So it was a big deal, and yet what I've realized, exactly what you're saying, my values were not there. My values were within what I was learning, whether it be in the Methodist, the Lutheran, or Science of Mind churches. So I love that, because I think we do have to look beyond labels that we put on things.
I love that, and that's community. Sometimes it's letting those labels go and
Right.
working as one together. And
Exactly.
so appreciate how you not only lead that here at Mile High, but how you are a personal example of that
Well,
in
thank you.
your interactions with so many people. And it's a pleasure to talk to you today.
And with you too, Josh, it's always enlightening because you're so wise.
Oh, thank you. I just make it up as I go
Yes,
along.
you do a great job.
Thank you, Jackie.